Okay, hello everyone. How is everyone? Hopefully you can all hear me. How are we all? We've got a few of you here. I can see my picture. Looks okay. Hopefully you can hear me. I think my microphone's working. Hi Carol. Hi Kathy. Got a couple of you here. Hi Helen. How are you? Can you just give somebody, just let me know if you can hear me okay? That would be really useful. If indeed you can hear me. If you can't hear me, I might need to sort something out. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Tracy. I do get a little bit worried that I'm talking to myself sometimes. Perfect. Thank you, Kathy. Loud and clear. Brilliant. Brilliant. As I say, I can hear, or I can see. Oh, look, Lisa's here as well. Hi, Lisa. How are you? How are you? Oh, thank you, Helen. Loud and clear. You can see me fine. That's good. I've got my lighting sorted out as well, which is good. Right. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. I thought this week, as you probably saw from the Facebook invite that was sent out, or the little thumbnail there, that I would actually go back and revisit some Christmas stencils, well, festive stencils. You can use them any time of year, actually, from a couple of years ago. I think these are, I don't think they were last year. I think they might have even been the year before. Anyway, I had a quick check and they are still on the website, which is great news for anybody who hasn't got them, and great news for anybody who is new to us as well. And actually, if you are new to us, there's a few new names on there I can see already. Actually, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Claire Newcomb. I'm on the Lisa Horton design team. I have been right from the very beginning, so that's 4 years now, I think. And the time has flown, actually, and we're coming up to the time of year where we're sort of slowly creeping towards Lisa's next birthday, or the Lisa Horton Crafts next birthday, which is just after the New Year. So we're creeping around to that time again. I can't believe it's December already, but I've been on Lisa's team right from the very beginning, right from the very first 3D embossing folders without stencils that she launched. I mean, even back then, her embossing folders were the best. I've always been a stamper and an inker at heart, so I love the inks that she's brought out, but I never really used embossing folders until I started using Lisa's. But I know I was on the design team, but I'm on the design team for a reason. I wanted to be on the design team because I love what Lisa does. For no other reason, I love her designs. I love the images that she comes up with, but I also just love her whole outlook to craft. I'd say I'm now a complete convert to the embossing folders. Even though, Kathy, I do forget to use them on air sometimes. I do forget, I must admit. But in that progression, I love what she's done by bringing in the stencils, because it gives me that chance to play around with inks and colours, and it brings out the artist in you. If you think you can't draw, or you think you can't stamp, or you haven't quite mastered it, if you get Lisa stencils and get an Ultimate, you're well away. You can create yourself a little masterpiece that you will be proud of, and in that case then you can go and then give your cards to others, the recipients, or you could even sell them as well, so that's no problem. So yes, I've been on the design team right from the very beginning, and most of the time I do lives for Lisa, because I live in Ireland and I find it a little bit tricky to get the cards back in time for her. So a lot of what you'll see from me is posted straight into the group and on YouTube. But today I thought, as I say, I'd go back and revisit one of the perhaps older collections and just bring it into today's times, I suppose, along with the inks and some of the other embossing folders and stencils that we have had released for this year. So I'll be using also, as alongside these, I've got a couple of cards alongside prep that I can sort of have a play and put together. So I'll be using them alongside the framed poinsettia, which I think is this year actually. But it's definitely newer than these. But say it's this whole mix and match thing. Just because these are from a couple of seasons ago really doesn't mean that you can't use them with what is being brought out today. So I'll be using the framed poinsettia, which is again an embossing folder with the die included and the layering stencils. I'm also going to bring in the candles again, which were new this year. Also, so it's a really nice sort of mix and match. Say, bring the old with the new, which is what crafting's all about. And we have our old favourites, don't we, in our craft stash, which is we should always go back to. I mean, we bought them for a reason. We bought them because we fell in love with them when we first saw them. So it's really nice to be able to sort of bring them out and give them different uses. So as I say, I'm using the candles again that were from this year, and also one of the massive successes of this festive release for 2024, the framed festive baubles. So I'll be using just the frame from this, and again it's been requested a couple of times and a lot of people have used this, but this collection in itself has got so many different ways of being used. To say, all I'm just doing this time around is just isolating that frame, stenciling and embossing it, and pairing it with the festive flower and berries that we have here also. So we'll see how we go for time. I'll be stenciling these ones for you today. I've prepped those other designs already, but I'll talk you through how I've done those as well. So let's get stenciling with these, shall we? As I say, this is an A6 collection, so I'll bring out the embossing folder for this. So it's a small embossing folder here, A6 in size. We have dies also with this. Let me do this. Let me put this to one side. So we have, for each of the elements of foliage that we have here, we also have the die alongside that. So once stenciled, we can die cut these out and then go on to emboss them as well. And actually I figured out a little nifty trick this morning, how I can emboss all of these together. I mean, you can do them all individually, but I actually found it a bit of a quicker way to emboss them, which would make it a lot easier for me to do the embossing for you sort of live on air, because it won't take up as much time, but it's just a useful sort of nice little technique for me to be able to show you. So we have the dies with the embossing folder. So if you do get these separately, you can just use the stencils on their own, and you can stencil each of the elements individually if you want to, or if you just get the embossing folder on its own, again you have the ability to die cut and then emboss just the elements individually if you want to as well. Okay, so I should put that to one side. We don't need that at the moment. I'm going to cut down my piece of card. So I'm using Lisa's super smooth cardstock, which is a dream to stencil on, and it's a lovely clear white colour as well. I'm going to bring my stencils out. So this set of stencils, we have 7 in here, and I'm going to be stenciling all of the elements for you together. But as I say, you can actually do these individually. So if you only want to have like the berries, then you can just do the berries and do them multiple times as well if you want to. If if you're batch making and then that's just the particular element that you want. This is what is perfect about these layering stencils. You can see that the way that they're arranged, I should show you on this one, that each of the elements have their own individual space. So there should, there'd be no overlapping. But let's get stenciling. This is what Lisa's all about, isn't it? As well as the embossing folders. But I don't have any slides for you today, because there was a lot of mixing and matching and everything going along. And as I say, I was just having a real play. But what I will do, I will make sure that underneath the video, when I finished a little bit later on, that I'll put down all the ink colours, and I'll jot down all of the sets and the item numbers that I've used, or Lisa's item numbers that I've used, so they can be found all on Lisa's website. I shall give you the names of them as I go along as well, if that is helpful to you. I think what I might do, I'll just pop up the QR code there. So if at any stage while I'm chatting you want to go and find the item on the website, then you can do that. So let me bring your chat back up there as well. Oh, we've got Tina online as well. Hi, Tina. And Karen. Karen's from Germany, and Sharon. I know Sharon. Who else do we have? Jill, Beverly. Oh, all the names. Lovely to see you here. Okay. So I've already stenciled this a couple of times today. Slightly different colourways. So I think what I might do is, let me think. Now I've just got decisions here, haven't I? I'll run through the colours that I have. Let's move them across that way. I'm using the Christmas colours. So I have Jingleberry, and Merry Mistletoe. So these are the limited edition Christmas colours. So they're available as a 3-pack along with Arctic Frost, which is a blue. I have Rhubarb Jam, which is a standard stock colour, and I have Woodland Moss, which is a standard stock colour that will always be found, and it would be a standard colour in the Cloud9 collection, the matte blending ink collection. And then I also have one of the speciality inks, the metallic pigment ink, and I have it in the solid gold here. Oh, that's a little bit dark for you, isn't it? And I may well bring in a little bit of silver as well. We'll see how we go. So I should be using the Merry Mistletoe initially to start with, and I shall stencil the foliage in this colour. Now I'm using this a lot because obviously they are Christmas names and Christmas colours, but I will definitely be using these colours all through the year. So once the Christmas season has gone and we get back into sort of the normal stenciling and crafting for the rest of the year, this is such a really lovely green. It's perfect for Christmas, obviously, as the name suggests, but it's going to be a green colour that I reach for regardless. say any time of year, particularly for Lisa stencils, because they do feature so much foliage. And it's what with Merry Mistletoe, Woodland Moss, and we have another green. We have a Margarita and eucalyptus leaves and garden sage. There's lots of different greens actually, which I think is just ideal for a lot of the bouquet or the bouquet type clusters that Lisa has designed, where you need different types of green just to give sort of interest and depth. So if you're, say, on the fence about buying these colours and whether they're just Christmassy, then they're absolutely not. They are perfect for all year round. So what I'm also going to do, I've just stenciled those in the Merry Mistletoe, but I am going to go over a little bit with the Woodland Moss. Now, Woodland Moss is I think my ultimate favourite colour. I reach for this and I have to force myself to use another colour, another green colour when I'm stenciling. But I'm just going to overlay a little bit of Woodland Moss over that Merry Mistletoe. It just changes the tone very slightly, which again, you wouldn't necessarily think they blend too well together, and I'm not looking to actually sort of blend them seamlessly, but by overlaying a colour or the Woodland Moss over the Merry Mistletoe, it just changes things up a little bit. And you can see here that I've got that graduated shade in here. Some areas are darker than others, and I think with the foliage in particular, it's really a nice idea not to put an absolutely solid colour on. There's a time and a place for that, of course, but I think with the foliage, when you want to get a little bit of light and shade, don't worry too much about putting on an absolutely solid layer of colour. And you can see here, I'm just leaving that as it is. Now, this time around, you see I'm going down with Woodland Moss to start with. And what I will do, I will run a little bit of mistletoe, or the Merry Mistletoe, over the top of this. So the foliage will be made up, regardless of what stencil I've used, the foliage will be made up of the same colours, but different intensities of that particular colour. So they will still relate to each other, I think, which is really nice, and makes the whole piece sort of come together really nicely. But you still get those different shades without trying too hard, actually. You don't need to think too much about whether you're blending them too much. So all I've done there is, you can see that I've just run over a little bit of the Merry Mistletoe this time over the Woodland Moss, and it has just changed. It's had just that little bit of shading. And when I take that away, you can see that the two layers of foliage are different colours, but they don't jar against each other because I've used the same colour on each. So hopefully you can see that okay. I don't want to come in too much, I'll blur. There we are. And by not going too solid through the apertures of the stencils, you can see that I get this little bit of shading going on as well, again, without too much effort. So that's stencils 1 and 2. So we come on to stencil number 3, and here we bring in the poinsettia. So let me actually bring this here, because this is always a good reference point. I tend not to deviate too far from the colours of Lisa's, so I don't know why, usually because that's sort of what well, I can't even get my words out today, so that's what gives me the idea for the project that I'm going to do, and it's a really nice starting point if you are new to stenciling as well, and you perhaps only have limited number of colours, you know, ink colours. But I think what I might do today, I've already stenciled this a couple of times, and I've already done this in red and a pinky colour as well with a little bit of gold, and I think for one of the cards that I want to get done, I want a white poinsettia. So you can see that I've already done these here. This one was done with the rhubarb jam, and this one was done with the jingleberry. There is a slight mix of either colour in both of these, but the majority of this one, again, is that rhubarb jam with a little bit of gold overlaid on top as well. So you can see the difference in that, but that's a really nice way to show you the difference in colour. And when I hold them against the pads, actually, you can see that the colour that you see coming from the ink pads does translate quite well onto the paper there. But I think what I might do, just for this particular one, I do want a white poinsettia because I've got something with white in the background there. So I'm going to leave those there just so you can see how these build up. And I'm going to concentrate on white on this one. But to do that, I am going to use a tiny bit of red, and I'm going to use the Jingleberry, actually, mainly because of the red cardstock that I'm sort of going to put this onto. Because I want this to be white, I need to create a boundary around the outside, obviously. And I'm going to do that with what I have left on my Jingleberry brush here. And I'm just going around the outside. And I'm just working into, or just pushing into the aperture there, whatever ink I might have left on my brush. Because again, I don't want to colour this flower. I don't want it to be as red as this. But I do need to create that element of shading which tricks the eye into thinking that it's a white flower. So I'm just going into the centre there because we have this part of the stencil. I'll just pick this up and show you. We have this part of the stencil which is actually quite delicate, and I was a little bit heavy-handed when I was cleaning it, so it's not sticking up. So it's sticking up and not sitting as flat as it should be. So all I'm doing is just holding that down and just being really gentle around this section here. And that's absolutely fine for you to do that. I think it's the tiny little sacrifice to make to get that extra detail. So I'm just going around there and I'm barely putting any colour through that aperture. But when I take that away, you can see that is slightly pink. But the centre of the petals are white. So again, I think it's just all about trickery, really. It's just tricking the eye that this is a white flower, but that red around the edge just gives you a little bit of shadow and a little bit of shading, backlit, I suppose, to make you think that we are doing a white flower. So when we come on to stencil 4, we have another layer of the flower here, which sits just inside the one that we've stenciled there. And I'm going to do the same again, but concentrate from the middle outwards. So I'm getting the this separation of petals. And again, you'll notice I haven't put any extra ink on my brush, and I'm just working in the center of that flower like so. And I've got more than enough ink here, and all that is doing is just picking up the separations of those flowers. I don't need to go further into the flower to do that. And once I take that away, you can see that again it's an illusion thing with the tiny amount of ink that I've actually put down, that you have that illusion of a white flower. And I'm going to see if I can just change color, change camera angle there a little bit, and you can see how that's worked. Now I've just done that with red. This would work really nicely with a grey or the anthracite ink as well. And I think what I might do, just to highlight that in the center, because obviously there's going to be details in the center of this flower, so I'm just going to enhance that a little bit with my anthracite brush. Again, I'm not picking up any extra ink, I'm just using the ink that I have left on my bristles, and I'm just going really, I might need a new brush for this. This has been overworked, but I'm just going really gently into the center of the flower there and barely putting any ink down at all. But again, that is just going to highlight the center of that flower, which we can come into and add extra detail in a second. And you can see even just with that close up there that I'm putting a tiny amount of that anthracite ink down. Again, this could be and you can see there how that really makes the center of that flower pop. And what it's doing, it's drawing your eye to the center of the flower, which then gives the illusion that the rest of the flower is white, I think, anyway. In my opinion, I think that's just a really nice way of doing it, and it's something that say you don't have to use anthracite. You can use even rhubarb jam, I think would work. Something really dark, but just really gently in the center there. So I'm just going to come back from that now and work up on this level again. So you can see already how different those two flowers are. This is really intense and really, it is really Christmassy, to be fair. Okay, yeah, really Christmassy, and that is, you know, true poinsettia red, and that's from the Jingleberry. But this is just really subtle, and I really like that. So we come into stencil number 5, and we have the veining for the leaves there. Now, I am making Christmas cards of these, so I am conscious that we do need a little bit of bling going on. But I think what I'm going to do initially, I'm going to add the veining to these leaves with the colour that is already making up the leaves. So the ones that are made up majority with the woodland moss, I'm adding the woodland moss. So it's tone on tone at this stage. And then I'm coming in with the merry mistletoe on the rest of them. Again, I'm going very tonal. You could use a black, you could use a grey. Again, you have your favourite way of doing things. It really is up to you. And the whole idea when you stencil something like this is that you go with what looks good to your eye, or you can experiment. And if you experiment and you like what you see, then you'll probably stick with it. If you experiment and you don't like it, then you'll know not to use that colour combination again. And say it's all very much personal choice. So I'm coming in with the tonal details like that, and I'll just show you the difference. So they're really quite delicate and quite subtle in the background there, and it looks really pretty. And the darkness of the green really makes that flower pop as well, doesn't it? Looking at it on the screen there. So now I've done that, I'm just going to pop that stencil back on, because again, we are making Christmas cards, so I do want a little bit of shine and bling there, not too much. And this is what these metallic ink pads are actually great at doing. So I've picked up a little bit of gold, and I'm just going to tip into the base of all of these veining details, just that little bit of gold. Now it's going to sit nicely on top of the green that I've used. The green has added the shading, so therefore it's going to make it look like the gold has got that little bit of shading on it as well. But in fact, all you're doing is just laying the gold on top. It does add a little bit of extra darkness actually, but the green underneath just adds that shading. So all I'm doing is just tipping that gold into all that vein work there. And I have to take that away. At this stage, you won't be able to see that, I don't think. No, I won't lift it up here just yet. I can see it here because I can sort of tilt away from the light, but I shall show you that in a second. Maybe I can show you here. You can see here actually that there's I've done exactly the same on that, but I'll show you that in a second because that looks really pretty. Now number 6, we have the center of the flower going on here. So I'm going to, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do that black initially. Yeah, I'm just going to use what I've got on my brush and just work that in so it goes reasonably dark. And then what I'm going to do is put some gold on the top of that just to make that shine. What you could also do, if you have it, the night sky would be absolutely perfect in that. But I tell you what, that is a very close second. You put that really thin layer of anthracite underneath and then put the gold over the top, a thin layer of gold over the top. That works so well if you don't have the night sky at this time. It's not an interference ink. Well, the night sky is interference ink. This isn't, obviously, but it's a very close second. That works really nicely. So that just came to me in a flash. That now we've got the berries here. Lisa's done them white. I love them in white, and I've also done these in quite a few other colours, to be honest. I think this is my favourite. These are all the elements that I'm going to be using a little bit later on to make the cards. I wanted to stencil them and cut them out beforehand, so I'm already prepped. But I've done these in quite a few colours. This one here I've done in silver. You can see the shine on that. Tell you what I might do. I'm going to do this again. There. Oh, look. You can see the, excuse my mucky fingers. You can see the shine on those silver bows. That literally is just the silver metallic ink, so the silver shine, and I've used the Jingleberry for the rest of the colours there. So that works really nicely, and that would work in a really nice sort of modern floral element. This one here, I've used a really light layer of Merry Mistletoe for the berries, and then I've gone over that really gently with some gold, and then tipped the edge of the top of the berries in gold, and then used tree bark at the bottom here. That's really pretty. I think I might do that again just to show you how that works. And then here I've just used the red. I've used the Jingleberry, and I've put just a little bit of Merry Mistletoe over the top, just to sort of make that quite a burnt orange sort of look. And then I've done the rest of the accents and the stems there in gold. So you can make them look lots of different ways. And if you wanted to say, you can stencil all these elements individually and create loads and loads of these berries, and just, you know, you'd be able to make some wonderful displays with just this type of embellishment in themselves. So you don't need to stencil the whole lot all of the time. So let's just switch cameras again. So those are really pretty, and I was really chuffed with those. And I think what I might do is just show you this green one again, because this is perhaps slightly a more alternative way to create the berries. Many people, I'm guessing, would go straight for red. So to create the berries there, let's come back to the stencil. I'm just going to pick up my Merry Mistletoe brush. It's the large stubby brush. And all I'm just going to do, just really gently, just brush off the ink that I have left. Again, I'm using such little ink, to be fair. I'm just using what is left on my brush. And say, I mean, I am lucky in as much that over the years I have collected a set of brushes for each of the colours, for me to be able to do that. I'm running out of wall space for storage, so if Lisa does bring out any more inks, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to store them all. So I think I might have to spend Christmas having to rearrange and thinking where I can fit some more storage in. But to say, all I'm doing is just using the ink that is left on my brush, concentrating the ink on the bottom of the berries there. I think that just gives a nice sort of graded element, and then the tips of those berries there are just going to stay slightly paler. I think once they're embossed, that makes that look really nice. And then I'm going to come back in with my gold brush, and again just use initially what is left on the brush and just brush upwards. Now normally I would say circular motions, but I want just to concentrate the colour at the base. So just by brushing upwards, so stroking the berries like so, and just taking the brush off at the top and just coming back to the base, you're just getting a really, really thin layer of the gold there. And because you're going into the aperture, the elements in the gold ink are going to settle around the outside of that aperture, which is perfect for this because the berries are going to be so pale. So when I take that away, just look how pretty and delicate that is. Now there is a real subtle shimmer on those from that gold ink. So the last stencil we have, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to do the tips of these berries in gold. We've already got the gold to a lesser extent, admittedly, through the berries, so that's just going to pick up anything that's left there. And then what I'm going to do I'm going to come in with my woodland moss, do that on the stems just here, not too dark. I'm going to do that, and then pick up a little bit more ink, gold ink, and go over the woodland moss with the gold. So we've got the best of both worlds here. So you'll still have that olivey green look, but then it will be a slightly, you know, with the gold over the top. And I think that works really nicely. And the colours, the colours still blend really nicely together. And what you can see is the gold sitting around the outside here is a different colour to the stems. Again, I shall show you that in a second. Now we've come down to the flower here, and we've got this extra veining that's going on here. Now, bear in mind, we want to keep this a white flower. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in with my, should I do it with this? Yeah, I'm going to come in with my anthracite brush. Again, still not picking up any extra ink. And all I'm just going to do, I'm just going to go circular motions and just tip the edge of those veins at the bottom there. And then just slightly add a little bit of ink just at the top of them. So the tips of these veins are just coloured or highlighted with the tiny amount of anthracite, and so are the tops there. The rest of them is going to stay white, but bear in mind we will be putting this through the embossing folder, so those veins will be highlighted. And you can see there what that has done. It's just sort of suggested where those veins and that detail is going to be. So that's quite a detailed look, actually. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and I've given you, you know, a good amount of sort of tips to get the best out of your stencil in there. Let's put those back because we've got those to come up a bit later on. So what I can do now, I can lift that up and I can just show you. You can see the gold on the berries there that's really highlighted, and if I can just get those on the leaves as well, really tricky. Just about, you can just about see the leaves there. Oh, there we go. You can catch the light on the leaves there. It gives you just that little Christmassy edge. So what I'm going to do now, obviously we need to emboss this before we can start thinking about and putting the cards together. So I'm going to cut this down to size, so this will fit into my embossing folder. Actually, I need to die cut them first, don't I? Okay, let's do that. Take that away. So let's get my dies. What did I do with them? I've put my dies somewhere. Yes, I'll put them back in there. Okay. And my embossing folder. So now there is a couple of ways of doing this, I suppose. If you look, the way that the stenciling has been laid out, it does mean that this can go straight into the embossing folder, and you could emboss them like that straight away, and then you could die cut them afterwards. But then you would possibly, just to get that depth of the embossing, you would need to go back in and re-emboss them individually. Now, because of the quality of the embossing folders, if you emboss them afterwards and flatten that out, you would still see a certain amount of that detail there. It's certainly a way of doing it, and as I say, you would still keep that detail. But if I show you this way, you should be able to line up and emboss these all in one go after you've die cut them. So I'm lining up my dies so I can die cut these all together, because as you can see, the dies don't overlap at all, so you can run these through all at once. You will, however, need to stick these in place, which is what I'm going to do just now. If I can do this quickly. Now there are a couple of other sets that are configured in this way, where you can stencil the elements individually like this and then die cut them and emboss them afterwards. There's a couple of other floral sets like this, and this technique that I'm showing you now will or can extend out to those collections also. So to die cut them, it's best to anchor them all in place with a little bit of tape. So I'm just going to do that now, so bear with me a second. Okay, let's remove that out of the way so you can see what I'm working on actually. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to remove the dies. I'm going to keep the actual die cuts in place. It's not essential if they move, because obviously you can pop them back in, but I think my advice at this stage is don't throw away this background. So take the dies away. You may want to keep the tape there. It's up to you. You know, you'll see the benefit of that in a second. So I'm just leaving these dies in place in their apertures. So basically they're placed that the outline or the surrounding card there is acting like a template. So I'm going to leave those in place, make sure that these dies are all lined up, and if this masking tape does just tip back onto your stenciling, just make sure it just, if you do want to do that, just make sure it touches the very tip, or put it on the reverse, because then what you want to do is you bring in the, mind them out of the way, you bring in the embossing folder, that's attached to the ultimate, so do remove that gently. You bring in the embossing folder and you keep those die cuts within that template that you've already created, and you can manipulate, let's just put the ink on there because I know that I'm clumsy enough to get ink on the folder and then get that everywhere else. Okay, mind that out of the way. So what you can do now, you can just manipulate your die cuts within that template. Sorry, can you see what I'm doing? To fit and line up on your embossing folder. Can you see that there? Because of those templates are sitting within the aperture that I've cut them from, it means that I can move all four at the same time and line up all four of those designs for embossing, as you would do if it was just one large design in itself. And then I can just close that embossing folder as I would do normally, and that gives you the option then to emboss all of those four designs all at once. Now the other way of doing it obviously is to, if you didn't keep this template that you die cut them from, that's absolutely fine, but the easiest way to do that then is to emboss each of these elements individually, unless you tape them in place. If that works for you and you've got a tape that you can easily remove from the reverse, then that's absolutely perfect. But I found that even with the lowest of tack tapes, if I were to attach the stenciled images to the top of the embossing folder, I still struggle. That's me personally. I still struggle to take the tape away from behind, and little on delicate areas like this, I think it's a shame just to ruin that. But that lines, for me, I think that lines up really well, and that's a really nice tip to try and get to grips with on this type of collection. So I'm just going to emboss that for you now. So running that through the folder there, you can still see that everything's still stayed in place. Need to open that up, and now you can just remove each of those. Just take that away from the tiny little areas that the tape has kept that in place, and you can just remove each of those out of there, and they've all been embossed perfectly. That it's all lined up, it all stayed in place, and that's all 4 elements embossed for you. Now you could keep this, but if you think about it, each time that you stencil and die cut these, you'll be having your own template of these each time. But that, to me, that actually saves an awful lot of time, and I was quite pleased with how well that worked early on. And you can see, let me just turn the camera again. There you go. You can see how well that embossing has actually come together and actually brought that image together. And even on the it's the white flower. I mean, it's white with a tinge of pink, but to all intents and purposes, that's a white flower. And you can see the embossing has really sort of brought that to life. So that's quite a detailed look at these designs, actually stenciling these. So what I want to do is just give you some ideas on how these can be used with our newest designs. So what I've done earlier on, as I say, I stenciled the frame. I die cut that out and embossed that, and I've actually die cut that and embossed that onto a pink cardstock, and I've used rhubarb jam, which does seem a bit strange, but it does actually add a little bit of dimension to the frame there. I've used opaque white as well as a gold. And then when I die cut this out, I also die cut the center because I wanted to emboss it, but I didn't want to have the internal detail there. So I die cut the center out, but I kept the center because what I want to do is still put that onto the center of the frame, but without the bauble detail there, because by adding the center of the frame, it does mean that I can now use these details and layer those in turn inside the frame, just like that. Which I can then frame a sentiment. Now what I did do is run out of time for my sentiments here, but what you can do, you can pop out a sentiment like so. That's cut out in white, so it matches the background of the flowers there. So I can put that across the center of the frame, and I can just build these details. I won't stick these down because I'm conscious I'm running out of time a little bit. I went into a lot of detail with the stenciling, I'm afraid. But I'll just show you how these can build, and you can just see the beauty of that frame and how you can use these elements to build up that card around the frame there. So that's one idea that you can use with these festive elements, and I'll stick all these down properly and photograph them for you a little bit later on. So that's one idea, and if you were to stencil that frame even onto another colour, those details would still look lovely against. That looks really Christmassy. Perhaps you could do it this way round. Obviously, if you put this on a card blank, you could layer your sentiment on there, and you can add your details and just build. It really is a case of playing, and if you were to stencil these a number of times, you can build up a lovely floral display all the way around. Perhaps you could do, you know, you can really go to town and do it this way. You can add more berries. You can add the berries up like that, you know. So imagine that was on a card blank. You can really go to town, and that frame is just the perfect backdrop for that as well. Again, that looks really lovely. And I stenciled these in 2 different ways. Although the colours are similar, you can still mix and match all of those colours. So that's another way to add your, or to use your details. So that's with your festive frame. Now, the other one that I done was the framed poinsettia. Now I'll just show you this embossing folder actually here. This embossing folder comes with a die already attached in, and what that allows you to do, let's just move those out of the way. I stenciled and then I embossed, but by embossing it allows you to die cut the center. Oh, it's just tabbed there. Obviously didn't run that through quite well enough. We'll take that out. Okay, so that enables you to die cut the center. Now I'll just show you here. I've stenciled this onto red cardstock, and actually I'll show you that on the back. It's red cardstock, but before I embossed it, I actually stenciled with the opaque white over the red cardstock, and it was this that I wanted to use with the white poinsettia there that I can sit on the side. And again, you can find yourself a sentiment. Let me just find, so here we are, happy or festive cheer. That would work really nicely. So we can have a nice little sentiment that sits in there, and then we can use some of these other alternative coloured berries and just build up our detail around our sentiment. I think the sentiments for Christmas are a really nice focal point to build the detail around. So again, you can create yourself a really nice floral bouquet effect with all of these details onto just a simple embossed background. You don't even need to actually stencil that, to be honest. Even just against a plain background, that would look really nice as well. But it just really highlights the sentiment as well. So you can see why I wanted to create the white poinsettia to go against the white background here. But again, I think this would work on any card, but you could equally add a red sentiment or the red poinsettia as well. That works perfectly well. And the jingleberry colour works really nicely with this red cardstock that I have. And I think the silver berries there just add something a little bit different. So you could add the green berries, or if I just take this from another set, we have the red berries as well. So we could add the red there. You know, there's so many different ways of doing this. You can really have a lot of fun. You can spend the time stenciling all of these elements and then just building up lots of different bouquets and different arrangements on your card. So that works really nicely against your poinsettia frame. And I think at one stage there was a question in the group. Somebody had, I think it might have been this poinsettia frame, and just needed a little bit of inspiration, just needed a little a few little ideas on just how to use that in the background. So hopefully that's given you that idea. Actually, what I can do, I can leave that there. As I say, I can put all of these together and stick them all together for you a little bit later on. I really like the mix of all of these greens. I don't know about you, but I think that works really nicely. Okay, so that's idea number 2. And lastly, I won't keep you too much longer. Lastly, I thought I'd bring in the candles. Again, this is from this year's collection, festive collection. It's an A6 size embossing folder and set of stencils. No die with this one, but you can use any of your aperture dies to create with. And I've created this, although it's an A6 embossing folder, I'm creating this on a square card because that's my favourite size card to use. I've stenciled the candles, you can see here, with all the same colours that I have sitting in front of me here. So I haven't deviated from the colours that I'm using at all. So, you know, there is a theme, you know, a good colour theme with everything that I've made today. So you'd mount this up on your mats and layers, and again, just use your details just to highlight around the outside and just build up those details. So you can bring in a sentiment. So we can use this one here. Perhaps we can put that up the top. Now this is really lovely because we already have the foliage from the candle stencil here as well. But we also have, obviously, we can use our poinsettia that we can add here, which matches so well with the poinsettias that we have on our candle stencil as well. And we can build up a nice little wreath, perhaps to come down the side here, and then build up some extra detail around the sentiment on this side here. And we can use our berries. I do like the berries actually. I think they're probably my favourite. I just really like how they come out. So we can carry on. Have we got any more foliage? No, I've used the foliage elsewhere, so we can put perhaps the berries on here. We don't want to hide our sentiment too much, do we? Tell you what I'll do. We can add our berries like so. We can put a little bit more foliage over this side. Okay, I think Christmas, you can add more and more. Normally, less is more, especially when I create a card. I tend not to put too much on, but sometimes at Christmas, I think you can add more and more and it still work as well. So let me take off that from the ultimate there. And with that gold that I've managed to put into the stencils as well, you have that element of shimmer there. So you do have that little bit of bling without going too over the top as well. So let me just move these across. Let's say I'll put all of these together. I took a little bit too long with the stenciling. Hopefully you don't mind that too much, but I do like to give you sort of the tips and tricks, you know, just so you can get the most out of your stencils. But there's 3 very different looking cards there. So all embellished with the same set. This set that we have here from a couple of years ago. So it's really nice, again, to mix and match, bring the old back into your crafting with all the new sets that we have. Let's put that down there and bring that in. So my screen's not big enough for you now. Again, I will put all these together for you. Actually, I really enjoyed all of that. And they're very different types of Christmas cards to what I would normally create actually, but I really enjoyed that. So I'll leave that with you there today, because I think I could probably carry on for another hour at least chatting away, but I'm sure you've all got places to be, school runs to go on, as have I actually. I must go and get Stephen from school. So thanks so much for joining me today. Now, there's been so much going on this week. Obviously, you would have all seen the announcement that we have the lovely Paola joining us, along with Catherine and also Sharon, that does some of the will do some of the shows for Lisa. So Lisa has an amazing team backing her now. I think there's a little live from Paola at 7 o'clock this evening. I'm not quite sure what she has planned. I don't know if there'll be any crafting involved. I'm pretty sure she'll come in and introduce herself as well. But it'll be really nice to see Paula fitting in and seeing her take on using Lisa's items as well. So yeah, such a busy week. Then we have I think Lisa is on, what day is it tomorrow? No, it's not Lisa tomorrow, it's Catherine tomorrow, with inks and things for 2 hours. So I think there's a bit of an inking masterclass with Catherine tomorrow. I will be back with you next week. I'm not here this Thursday because I think finally I'm getting broadband installed, an actual proper broadband where we're not relying on satellites and things. So fingers crossed that all goes well smoothly for me. And I'll be back with you next week. So enjoy the rest of the week. There's a huge amount to look forward to, loads of ideas coming your way. So if you don't manage to catch any of it live, it will all be able to be, you can catch up with probably the most of it on YouTube or reruns and places where it's been shared on Facebook as well. So you won't miss out even if you don't catch it live. So thanks so much for joining me this afternoon. I'll let you get back to your afternoons. Take care everyone, and I shall see you next week.